Hi and welcome to this live webcast from economictimes.com in association with Ericsson on the topic of technology innovation transforming industries. I am Ashwani Mishra, editor with etcio.com, and I welcome you all for this session. I hope the session will be fruitful and there will be some key learnings that you can take from here. Before I set the context for this discussion, I want to welcome and introduce two very senior IT leaders who are present with us today. We have with us Vijay Sethi, who is the Chief Information Officer and Head Social Corporate Responsibility at Hero MotoCorp Limited. Welcome, Vijay sir. We also have with us Ajay Gupta, who is the Vice President and Head for Marketing and Strategy at Ericsson India. Welcome, Ajay. Information communication and technology has transformed the way we do business, and it has affected every industry in some way or the other. And some of these changes are very visible for us to see. In fact, we do not visit our bank branches every day to carry out a transaction. We normally don't visit a doctor each time when we need medical care. The combined forces of IT and telecom have changed the way businesses apply new products and services. And some of these, I guess, Ajay in his discussion will highlight. Before I hand it over to Ajay, I would also like to, take this time to. Yes. So, Ajay, you want to start off with in terms of how technology or ICT in general is enabling industries across and sharing some real life examples.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, and thank you so much. So as Ericsson, we have a vision of network society, a society where people, businesses and society will reach its full potential, and that full potential will be reached with the usage of the ICT, which is information communication technologies. Now, many industries have transformed. We see that every day in our daily lives. We couldn't have imagined 5 to 10 years back how taxi services will get transformed. I mean, that was an industry which was not using ICT in any way, and look at the way things have happened. So many industries around the world are transforming, and many are in the phase of transformation, and this pace will continue, and we're going to touch more on it as we go along. Everything that could benefit from a connection will be connected. It is now our imagination what can be connected. In our labs we have trees which are connected, right? In the first, it took us 25 years to connect 1 billion people. The next 5 billion got connected in next, or took 100 years to connect first billion, 25 years to connect next 5 billion. It will take 15 years to connect 26 billion. So by the end of this decade, which is 2020, we think 26 billion devices will get connected, and then in foreseeable future we will have 50 billion devices which will get connected. I think the important aspect is, at one point in time we were connecting only humans, then we started to connect humans and machines and systems, but now objects are going to get connected to objects, and that's creating wonderful applications and huge amount of efficiencies. All these connectivity of various types of devices, systems, processes is leading to transformation of industries, and that is what is driving. Now, what is the need? The need is we are short on resources. Now, whether that is energy, whether that is human resource, and that is leading us to drive more efficiency. These are the business drivers. Of course, there is a lot of urbanization. Our consumer behavior is changing dramatically. We also know at the bottom of the pyramid there is low financial inclusion. So that is driving changes. For example, we saw Jan Dhan Yojana by the government, right? And coupled with that, the mobile phones and a scheme like that with the government and direct cash transfer can really transform the society on the whole. So we think ICT is the backbone of this whole transformation that is really taking place, and industries are transforming in different ways. We know the way we used to consume media, majorly through television, and now there are many ways we consume the media. We know how utilities around the world are transforming today. It's a very dumb electricity pipe that comes to our house and we consume the way we want to consume, but now there can be dynamic pricing. There can be peak pricing, there can be off peak pricing, right. We could generate our own energy at home and then we can put it back to the grid. So we can mix several sources of energy and then we can charge differentially. So smart grids are going to come in. Automotive sector, there are going to be connected cars, right. Now whether it is infotainment, whether it is service, whether it is purchase of services, whether it is navigation, whether it is as simple as finding an empty parking slot, all that can be done through a connected car. I am going to talk about how we have gone about connecting ships on the seas, but that brings better routing, better fuel saving, containers being connected. Public safety is another aspect, surveillance, public safety. So these things, response time goes up, and we already touched upon financial inclusion. So there are many ways industries are transforming, and that is all happening with ICT. Now, as industries are transforming, and I talked about some of these different types of industries, not every application or different applications have different needs. Some applications are low latency. What we mean by that is you need very quick response time. Some applications need higher speed, some need coverage, right. So and some will need security, some need large amount of data, some have a very small amount of data. So moving from the voice to data world, the networks will have to be configured and architected in a way that they are flexible and adaptable to the user, the application and the use case. And therefore, we in Ericsson have been actually innovating networks, whether it is 4G or going forward 5G, which will adapt to different needs of different applications, and coupled with what we call as capillary networks, which are Bluetooth based or 802.11 based, the mainstream networks will work in conjunction with them to fulfill the needs. So we visualize that there will be one network and many industries. Now there could be a scenario where everyone tries to create a different network, but then you will be highly inefficient. So one network for many industries, which basically means that your latencies in some applications could be 5 times lower. In some applications the battery life would need to be 10 times higher. The overall data in the network will increase approximately 1000 times. There will be large number of connected devices. So we will be able to splice the network based on the application, and all this is coming together because we have mobility, broadband and cloud now completely converged, right. And with some of the new technologies like SDN, NFV, it is possible to architect a very flexible network to be able to meet the needs of the industry. And as we try to meet the needs of the industry, the operators will play different roles. Now some operators, and this is our global research, that some operators, approximately 40% of them, will simply provide connectivity. So they will provide the best possible network, and some operators will open up their APIs and provide OSS, BSS like billing, or other system APIs like location, identity, for ecosystem partners to come and create their own applications. So they will provide the network and they will provide all the enablers for ecosystem players to come and use the network the way they want to use. So that will drive innovation, and there will be a scenario where operators themselves will be service creators. Like operators could offer music services, operators could offer health services, right, in conjunction, let's say with a hospital, but they will provide the application which the end user can carry in conjunction with the other service providers. So there are many scenarios which are possible. We think 20% of the operators globally will become service creators, not only to enhance their revenues, but also take advantage of this change that is happening in the world. Now, so what we visualize as Ericsson is, it is going to be networks for all industries. Ericsson has been innovating for last 140 years. We created the first 1G system. We are now into the 4G, and we are right now innovating 5G. right? We have 37,000 patents. We have 25,000 people working in R&D. We spent $5 billion in R&D, and we are already working on different use cases across industries so that the requirements of those industries can be fulfilled by networks. So let me just walk through some of those examples. Here is an example of a coverage. So now the ships are going to be all over the world in high seas. The ships need to be connected.
Right.
So Maersk Lines, which is the largest shipping lines, we have connected all their ships. So what does it do? It creates better routing for the ships. It creates more fuel saving. So the shipping line itself is becoming far more efficient. Once the ship is connected, then all containers on the ship are connected. That means we can also monitor not only the location of your container, but we can also monitor the goods inside the container and the state of those goods. We can monitor humidity, we can monitor temperature or any other parameter that is relevant for that particular application. So sensor based applications now come into play. Here is a case of low latency. You want to control an excavator sitting remotely. Now it requires very low latency because you want to be able to see what you are doing immediately. Then only you can react, right? So here is working with Volvo. We created this excavator. It is a standard excavator managed through 4G and 5G networks. We know that media is a very large part of our lives, and the quality of media is increasing. So networks would need to be architected to take into account the high definition, the ultra high definition video that is going to flow, which means networks will need to have much higher capacity. So that's what media does. And then on the other hand, when we look at battery life in a remote area, remote sensors deployed in forests in Brazil or in Indonesia to monitor, you can monitor gunshots, you can monitor illegal felling, you can monitor smoke depending on the type of sensor that you put, right? Now these sensors will wake up only when needed, and these sensors will require fairly long battery life, and we are working with the network architectures that this battery life is 10 years, right? So basically what we are saying is we in Ericsson are looking at the different applications and we are making it work for different types of applications. Now the pace of change is never going to be slow. We look at the way car industry is going to change. I have no idea whether my son is actually going to buy a car. I don't know whether he will even drive a car, right? Because you may not need to even own the car. The business model could be on miles. I really don't know. I think this is what we are thinking. Today's bus stops where buses are coming and stopping, you could have various types of sensors, pollution sensor or any other information that you want to provide. You could have insurance based on driver behavior, which is coming in. So what I'm trying to say is the pace of change is going to increase even further with the usage of technology, and industries are going to transform more and more, and we think that going forward in next 10 years time, this will completely transform the way we see the industry today, and I think that is our vision. And at the back of this change, you will need the networks, you will need the IT technology. So mobility, broadband and cloud are the fundamentals which is making this change happen. It has IoT, Internet of Things, as a future. So networks are being architected in a way that we can take data from different types of sensors. I gave you examples of different types of industries. So that is our vision of what is going to happen.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ajay. In fact, I was going through one of the reports from Thomson Reuters, and they have a division called the Intellectual Property and Science Division, and they came up with a report which highlighted 10 innovations which will take place by 2025. And in fact, you spoke about cars, and they said everything would be electrical. Cars would take over your normal vehicles. and everything would be digitally connected, and every location in the world. So
Yes.
some of the innovations were mind-boggling actually.
Absolutely.
Right. Vijay sir, Ajay spoke about how industries are transforming across the globe. What's the scene in India, and how do you see enterprises embracing this change?
So I think what is happening over here in India especially is that earlier there used to be a major time lag between what used to happen in US or other parts of Western Europe, and then India would kind of follow after many years.
Right.
But now I think the situation is not there. So if there's something which is happening in US or other developed economies, almost at the same time you can see a lot of stuff happening in India. So which means that people in India, the industries, the enterprises are really looking at whether it is IoT, whether it is M2M. Of course, cloud and mobility have been
I've been there. Yeah.
as part of Indian IT landscape for many years now. But IoT and M2M are also being seriously looked at. I also know that there are a lot of Indian enterprises who are looking at things like what Ajay mentioned on setting up infrastructure, setting up networks and those kind of things. But Ajay, just to one point where you said in your presentation that you're looking at network of industries. To my mind, I think my personal thing is that we are going beyond network of industries. It's not just about industries today. So it's anything that can be connected, even if it's not industry. So it's actually a good amalgamation of industries and human being.
Absolutely.
For example, if there's a person who wants to just have a sensor to monitor his maybe blood pressure or maybe heart rate,
Yes.
or to ensure that there's a personal security, and so you put in a camera at home and you're monitoring it remotely, or you can monitor your AC or other stuff. So it's gone beyond industries, and I think that's the major tipping point as I see for IoT, because till the time it's within the confines of a factory or industry, the kind of proliferation that one would see of this technology would be less. Whereas when it gets into masses and all the 1.2 billion people in India, to say that are kind of impacted by each of those activities. The sensors are not just for the industry, but sensors are for each and everything. That's why they call it Internet of Things rather than just for the industry. So that was one point which I thought maybe you meant that, but from a vision perspective, it's beyond industries today. Coming back to specific on India, I think Indian industry first. Indian industry is really looking at IoT. There are a lot of use cases which are already happening. We at Hero are also doing some bit of stuff on this. Especially automobile industry is one of those kind of pioneers. Telematics has been in vogue for many years. There were infrastructure constraints, so he spoke about mobility, broadband. Those are kind of things which are helping Indian industry leapfrog into usage of IoT. More importantly, there's one more thing, especially from an Indian industry perspective. There's always a huge focus on being cost competitive. What is also happening over the last 6 months, what I'm seeing is that the cost of sensor is coming down. So, and the battery life is increasing. He spoke about 10 years, we've been talking of various other kind of sensor, 2 years, 3 years without battery, with battery, all those kind of things. So once your cost of entire end-to-end total cost of ownership of the sensor, the peripheral equipment, entire thing comes down, and one can really see it coming down these days, the adoption in India would really increase manifold.
Right. So you spoke about you have been using mobility cloud. So what if you could just share of how you have put that to use at Hero MotoCorp?
So cloud and mobility have been there. So I personally have been kind of pushing cloud for last 7-8 years. So today, for example, Hero MotoCorp has one of the largest dealer network in the India.
Right.
So we have all our tier 1 and tier 2 touch points are today controlled by one single central cloud. So which means that anything that's being done at any of these touch points, and which none of them are owned by the organization, they are independent organizations on their own. But each one of the activities is being managed out of a central cloud, which we manage. Mobility has been there for ages. So started with the very basic of a push, pull, SMS kind of thing many years back, or a email. But I think what now we are doing is, for example, even the person who goes into rural areas, the rural sales executives, which is a dealer's employee. So he is carrying a tablet where he goes to various sarpanch and opinion leaders and gives them that this is a product, takes their opinion, pumps in the data back into the tab. At somewhere in the central server, the data gets collated, it gets matched with our entire retail sales and other stuff which is happening, and then one can go back, do cross-selling, upselling, those kind. And then similarly, mobility within the organization, mobility for the customers, for our employees, for vendors. So there's enough mobility which is going on. The trucks, for example, the trucks which carry our bikes or scooters to our dealers, all of them carry GPS. So which means, and that entire information is linked back onto our dealer management system. So I know that if a truck is leaving our factory, say over here in Gurgaon, and it's going to say Calcutta. So while I can track on my mobile phone as to where that truck is, so it's based on the load that that particular truck is carrying. So I know that when this truck is going to reach me and where it is. So mobility cloud has been there in many days. From a IoT perspective, maybe I can just share. So we recently, around a year back, inaugurated one of our factories in Neemrana. So Neemrana is around 90 odd kilometers from this place. So this is what we term as garden factory. So that all the entire temperature, humidity, oxygen levels in the factory
More of sensors that you
are all monitored by sensors.
Okay.
So there is no human intervention. So this monitored by sensors, and the information, whatever is picked by the sensors, we take necessary controls, and it is being monitored remotely. So there's no person over there who's actually
Sitting physically,
managing. The entire thing is being, the data is being fed back into a central command center, and if there's an action to be taken, that action is taken. So things are not just in cloud and mobility, but going ahead, moving, using the sensors, and a lot of other stuff is being done today.
Right, Ajay, now coming to you, how are you planning to deliver ICT solutions, to companies like Hero MotoCorp or across industries? How are you trying to target them?
Okay. So in terms of providing ICT solutions, I think the ICT solution basically is based on co-working along with the partner. So let's say if I were to work with them, then basically it is co-creating the solution. It's not a cookie cutter solution that you bring and you put it on the table, right? So as he is talking about dealer network, as he talked about mobile workforce, right? So there are many solutions that Ericsson has. Number one, all this will require connectivity of different types, right? Now, when you want to connect the workforce, it requires large coverage solution. The moment you get into inside factory, maybe it needs some capillary networks which can reliably capture and securely capture the data from the factory, and if they have a cloud, put it onto a cloud environment, right? And then integrate it with various applications that they may have. And so for example, within Ericsson, we have Ericsson Vehicle Cloud, whereby we can monitor, this cloud will allow companies like Hero MotoCorp to put their vehicles on the cloud to capture all the service information. You can capture the parts which are likely to go bad. You can link it with your dealers. You can monitor how many times a vehicle has come for service. You can partner with an insurance company to provide to upsell on insurance. You can get latest navigation maps downloaded. So the applications are a number of them, right? We also have a device connection platform, which means let's say Hero MotoCorp's trucks or some other company's trucks or all the cars can be connected onto this, and then can be monitored, and various other devices, other factory devices can be brought onto this, so that we can create a full application. But many of these things are basically things that we work with the customers, and then we create specific solutions based on the needs. You saw some of the examples that I talked about.
Right. Vijay sir, since
Right. Now, I just want to add one more thing. See, we are the word is moving towards, when we talk about mobility, cloud and broadband, the word is moving towards a very tight understanding of IT and the way telecom is evolving.
Right.
And we seem to be sitting in a very unique position where we have built capabilities on the IT side with the huge capability that over years we have built on the telecom side, and we are bringing all that together to our customers. So that's how we are very uniquely positioned. We also work with the operators, so we can work with them as a partner, and put the whole solution together. So that's what we can do.
That's the combined.
So just to add to what Ajay is saying, I think the key thing which is happening over last couple of years is that it's not customer vendor relationship that most of the IT providers would have with their customers, but it's more of collaboration. So all the solutions are actually kind of jointly evolved. So you don't know what will finally come out, but both the teams work jointly, and collaboration is the
So gone are the days, when
when you would
have one
create a
solution
200-page RFP and give it back into the vendor and say that please get it done.
Right.
It actually doesn't, because as we saw in the presentation, the world is changing so fast that some of the assumptions that we do take today to do particular solution, within few days those assumptions don't exist anymore, and some more constraints come up. So you have to continuously evolve your solutions. That's where collaboration plays a key role.
Right. Vijay sir, what are the challenges when it comes to, because we have been hearing a lot on IoT and M2M, and many of them are keen to, embrace that within their enterprises. What are the key concerns that needs to be mitigated when it comes to IoT embracement, or for example M2M?
I think the biggest challenge to my mind is your own conviction. The person who is driving IoT or M2M in an organization, so be it head of IT, be it head of sales, or any other person, so I'm not naming a person, the person should be fully convinced, and the organization behind him should be fully convinced that if I'm going this way, this is really helping the customers, it will create value for me, create value for the customers, create value for the entire ecosystem. Once I'm convinced on that, all the challenges can then be surmounted. But most of the projects don't take off because we get stuck at the very first end.
Right.
Because we want to do certain things, but we are not too sure whether it will actually be successful. Even if it fails, I'm okay. I'm willing to do experiments. Even if they fail, I'm okay. But while I'm doing that experiment, I should go with that conviction that I'm putting in my best efforts to make it succeed.
Right.
And so that's the first thing. Second, from very tactical points in India, bandwidth. It's an issue. The reality is there are call drops. The reality is that even your normal broadband drops are there. The bandwidth quality is bad. The costs are high. So I think things are improving, but that's a constraint. Cost of chips, which I spoke about,
Right.
sensors. I think that's a major thing, because especially for a company like us, when we talk of volumes, we from a two-wheeler perspective, we have 70 odd lakh two-wheelers every year. So even if it's an extra rupee in that
Right.
sensor, it really adds.
Right. Right.
And then linked to that, it's not just the cost of sensor, but the cost of entire data transmission. Even that's high.
Right.
So your 2G plans, 3G plans, whatever these plans are, the data transfer plans, they are expensive. So the entire cost of ownership really goes up. Till the time that cost of ownership comes down, the value that people are wanting
at.
to do,
Right.
it's not really you're getting that value. And the last, I'll just put one more constraint, I think, and that's a real constraint that one sees in some of these, especially when it comes to consumer facing and those kind of apps for M2M or IoT, is the privacy of data. Who owns the data?
Right.
Where is the data? What happens if the data is tampered? What happens that if someone really kind of hacks into your system? So I have an AC which is kind of controlled. I'm just taking a random example. So if an AC which is controlled using an IoT sensor, but someone hacks into that sensor and maybe instead of making a temperature of 27 degrees, make it
Right.
19 degrees, or does something else. So how does one ensure that? The hacking piece, and of course the data. Because if, for example, a person is carrying one chip on himself or herself, and say monitoring the heart rate or maybe any other thing, someone is also monitoring at the same time what the person is doing at what time and where the person is going, and the entire privacy of that individual is also compromised.
Right.
So those are also, that's a real issue. So we need to really work out on some of those frameworks as to how to ensure that. That's kind of hampering putting up. M2M is maybe within your enterprise, you know that one machine is talking to another machine, you are taking all those data. So till the time humans are not involved, I think privacy is less of an issue, though it's still an issue because someone can get into your own enterprise and do certain stuff. But over here, it's a bigger issue.
We saw Fitbit getting hacked.
Fitbit.
So
Correct.
that was.
I didn't want to get into specific examples, but that's reality.
Let me just add to what Vijay said. I think there are different types of applications out here. See, one is the moment you try to get into large industrial enterprises and we try to create efficiency, right? That every machine has a sensor, which earlier was either physically monitored or different ways of monitoring. So, you will end up creating different business processes to bring all the efficiencies, and I think we know that transformation of business processes within an industry takes time. Let me take other examples of things which bring quick results once pilots are proven. I think it talked of experiments. I think the world is moving towards doing smaller experiments and figuring out what works, and I think that's the way to go, right. So, for example, I recently came across a use case whereby in oil and gas industry, after a certain duration they have to inspect the tanks. So, they have to empty the tanks and they have to see whether the tanks are in proper shape and safe to store, and it is, I am told, it's a month long process. Now, if you take a drone and you fly a video camera inside and then you do all the surveillance and then you have all the machine learning logic to see where is rusting, where are cracks, and then you do not have to necessarily do all this over a month long period, right. So, your shutdown times actually go down and you bring tremendous efficiency in the system. You take transmission wires, the power grids, and if you fly a drone with the sensors all along this transmission line, you can monitor the health of the transmission line. You take gas pipelines which are going, you can put sensors all along, or you could actually inspect them, not through humans, but by using machines. So, I think these are examples of things which bring very quick returns, they bring huge efficiency. Of course, safety, security is paramount. So, these things need to be proven in that environment. But what I am trying to say is, as we discussed earlier, the applications are mind boggling. It is left to the imagination, and we just need to be bold enough to do these experiments. And obviously, one thing which always goes with technology and many of these applications is the regulation also has to support. So, as long as that happens, I think this is going to find its way. I recently came across examples of agriculture, M2M being used in agriculture. We know that pumps could be switched on through GPRS, I am not talking about that. But in India, in Karnataka, I came across a case where people are actually doing soil monitoring, humidity monitoring, temperature monitoring, and then watering. Amazing. I think that's the way to go.
Absolutely.
Right, we have some questions also from the audience. Ajay,
Okay.
one I would pose this to you. Apart from 4G and IoT, what is the next technology wave Ericsson foresees in the telecom space?
Okay, I think I briefly touched upon it. So, I think we are working on 5G, and so 5G is going to allow, along with other technologies like NFV and SDN and cloud, allow us to create adaptable networks, allow us to create flexible networks where we could splice the network based on the application and the use case, right. That is what we are working on. He touched upon broadband reliability. Of course, all that is table stakes. This has to happen. We have to make sure that there is adequate investment in the networks to be able to provide reliable connectivity. But different applications requiring quality of service. He talked about security, which is very paramount. We spend huge amount of R&D money in making sure networks are secure, right, because that is very important going forward, right. So, quality of service is important, coverage is important, capacity is important, volume of data is important, security is important. So, all these parameters coupled with the type of application, you actually architect the network accordingly, and therefore, we said one network for all use cases. I do agree with him when I said industries. Of course, it has to get into homes, it has to get into consumers, which we are the biggest driving force of change today, right. But many of these things industries will also have to transform.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right, yes.
Right. Vijay sir, we have a question for you. How mature, secure and scalable are cloud-based applications when it comes to industrial applications, mainly from an Indian context?
See, number one, there is nothing like cloud from an Indian context. Cloud is cloud.
Right.
So, your data center could be in India, it could be in some other part of the world. So, once it's cloud, then there's nothing like Indian context. The only thing which could come in from Indian context is either regulations,
Right.
or your mindset.
Right.
Rest, as far as the security of cloud is concerned, my personal view is that the amount of technology or the money that a cloud service provider can put in his entire thing will be more than the IT budget of most of the organizations. IT budget, not IT security budget.
Right.
So, which means that even the cloud service providers for whom the entire business is about cloud, they are trying to ensure that cloud is very secure.
Right.
But then of course, there is a mindset issue which is there. Your own organization can get hacked. You may feel that if the data can be, there could be data theft from a cloud perspective. The fact is that your own organization can be. So, security is an issue from one perspective, but it is also an issue which has been addressed by most of the cloud service providers.
Right.
So, once you have that, I think each organization, while it is going into its cloud journey, needs to ensure that whatever are their own requirements of security, they just get that confidence back from the service provider that yes, those things are being met.
Right. There's one more question for you. To what extent can manufacturing digitize its daily operations to reduce labor cost, leveraging the network society that Ajay touched upon? Or
I think I'll just kind of slightly change the thing. I don't think industry is really, manufacturing industry would like to digitize to reduce labor cost.
right.
That's not the driving factor in most of the cases. The driving factor is how do I improve efficiency, how do I reduce overall costs, not the labor cost, and how do I ensure that the quality of my product gets better.
Right.
And digitization in most of the large companies today actually plays a huge role in manufacturing. Right from the time a product is being conceived or conceptualized, the entire thing is being done virtually today. So, and then it comes to a particular stage, so-called prototyping. We have 3D printers which can actually print the entire thing. You can look at the entire thing, and it's all digital. Move on. While it moves from your R&D setup where all the studio work, everything is being done digitally today, to the way the product will look like, how it will, how a particular, if a person sits, how the entire ergonomics will look like. Entire thing is digital. The entire manufacturing is again digital today. For example, in our case, when we are setting up one of our new plants, the entire layout of the plant is being first done with a software called digital manufacturing.
Right.
So, where we are actually virtually designing the entire factory, where we are looking at that from our current factory, if I have to reduce our entire line time. So, currently we have a takt time of roughly around 18 odd seconds. So, from 18 seconds, so a bike takes 18 seconds or two-wheeler takes 18 seconds where each two-wheeler is produced. If I have to make it in 17.5 or 17 or 16.5, the entire, it brings in so much efficiency. But to do that simulation in real life is really impossible. You cannot take out certain stuff, you can't put in more things, but we can digitally see and then see that, okay, these are the 4 things where there are certain constraints. Maybe I need additional manpower, maybe I need additional fixtures, I need to do certain things, or some of these points are where it can easily be made up to 15. So, you have enough leeway if you want to really put in more work over there. So, it's about work distribution. And then coming back onto your customer, end-to-end value chain, and I think it's digitally driven, whether it is based on social media, whether it is based on mobility or your connectivity, the cloud. So, from a manufacturing organization, the entire value chain and the linkage that we have with our vendors, today each of those components is amenable for digitization. And lot of organizations have done lot of digitization from that perspective. We included, we have done lot of stuff from that.
Right. Ajay, there is a question for you in terms of how is ICT and telecom going to change the economy of India?
Oh wow! So I think we basically believe that 10% of broadband penetration leads to 1% increase in GDP. But leave these statistics aside. I think in last 15 years, India's landscape of telecom has dramatically changed. Right? We have close to 1 billion people connected. Right? And we see how by them being connected, they have part of mainstream beneficiaries of the whole economic growth. In fact, they are the ones who are driving the economic growth. The industries which benefited immensely, of course, IT industry benefited immensely, because without telecom, there would be no IT industry. Right? He talked about how a motorcycle manufacturing has changed. His demands on the network, look at what he's asking for today. Right? So, all that is changing. We recently saw how money transactions are going to change. Payment banks have come into picture, which means there will be more financial inclusion. If there is more financial inclusion, there is more money in the system.
True.
Right? So more m-commerce is coming. We know how e-commerce wave is raging through the country. all this is happening at the back of telecom networks,
Right.
at the back of mobility. We know how Ubers and Olas of the world are changing the way we used to hire cars, right? So I think there is a complete transformation. Industries which are benefiting, but I think in my view will benefit immensely by more adoption is education, is healthcare. Education is no longer about that I want to go to a classroom to learn. You can actually do a lot of learning online, but you go to a classroom to discuss. So that will change, which means more students can study, more students can get access to quality education, which is always an issue. So I think all this, if you couple it together, it will bring more efficiency in the system. It will, that efficiency will then create, more jobs, better industries, more productive people. I think overall it will have a tremendous impact on the economy of the country. As I said, 10% broadband penetration leads to 1% increase in GDP. So more people connected through broadband, there will be increase of GDP. So that's the end effect.
Right. So we have one more question, and it has something to do with the mindset of business. And since Vijay sir, you raised about that issue, I'll pose this to you. How to change the mindset of business to adopt new technologies?
How to change the mindset of the business? I think it's very easy at one end to do it. It's equally difficult at the other end. The person driving the change, first he or she has to change his mindset or her mindset.
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing, because any change management effort at the end of the day is being led by somebody.
True.
So that's the one thing. Once the person is convinced, I say it quite often that the second step from a mindset change is not the end users, not the people who will use those technology, but the people who are providing that technology. Be it your own IT teams, be it your vendors, be it that set. Because there's a lot of times when a resistance also comes from them. So once these two are taken care, what I have seen over last few years which is happening is, most of the people today understand the power or the value that technology can bring to you. It's not a case where one has to justify why I'm automating certain things. It's not a case in any company today that when you automate, you will lose jobs. That's not there. That fear used to be there in late 90s when one had started ERP implementations and those kind of things. There's a huge resistance from user. But today, it is more of a pull, more of a information that the users want from you, because they know that technology can really help them in their day-to-day work. So mindset change is over here. So if I'm not moving on to cloud, chances are that somewhere in IT team somebody is actually resisting the change, rather than the user doesn't care. He doesn't care whether your data center is in Gurgaon or in Chennai or maybe in Seattle, who cares? Till the time he is getting the best service, until the time it's secure and at the pace that he needs. So the issue is here, whereas we are trying to, there are a lot of people who try to kind of always blame users at each of those ends. But let's first clear our own house, and I think the mindset issues would be gone.
That's a great answer actually. So very simple, it's kept it very simple. Ajay, to you, what do you think are the key drivers for 4G and 5G uptake in the next couple of years?
Oh. So in terms of 4G drivers are sheer needs of people. I think video will drive a lot of demand. We are all consuming video. When we do our own research, we find that globally we think 50% of the traffic through the networks will be video. So I'm going to come from the consumer angle. So video will drive tremendous demand. Then comes your social media, your browsing. I think these are basic applications. People are going to use more and more of it, right? That's clearly the demand. And the moment you get better experience, you actually consume more, right? So and what that does is that makes you more mobile. Okay, that means you're not constrained with the location. So you can be anywhere doing your job. Therefore, you want better speeds, you want better reliable networks, right? He talked about Salesforce is distributed, dealer channel is distributed. All that is putting demand on a reliable network. Now, we know that in India, we don't have that much landline penetration, right? Largely, these needs are going to be fulfilled through wireless, which is 3G or 4G, and we know that 3G networks are, they are not ubiquitous networks, right? They are in major parts of India, but they are not in every nook and corner the way 2G is. So 3G networks will have to spread out through the country. 4G networks are coming up. So much the same way as 3G proliferated, 4G will proliferate. Many of these applications, high-end applications, high-end users, demanding applications will move on to 4G, right? And going forward, there is a evolution towards 5G. Now, what that means is when industry is trying to digitalize itself, it's not just simple automation. You digitalize, which means your business processes are going to be run through digital systems, right? Then you will use a mix of these 4G and 5G systems. So I don't think 5G is that far off, but yes, globally 5G is going to come by, let's say, 2018, 2020. We are the ones who are doing experiments, as he talked about, pilots around the world, and we are very hopeful that India should take a lead, and for certain applications, for certain industries, we should bring that, because 5G is going to be all about IoT. How do you make machines, objects, systems, processes, everything, work together, different use cases, different applications.
Right. Any final thoughts, before we wind up this session? Any final thoughts that you would want to say, sir?
I think from an IoT perspective, since the key discussion was on IoT, in IoT we are at a stage where we were in cloud adoption maybe a couple of years back, 4-5 years back, which meant that there were certain initial people who went into adoption. They saw gains. Also, the entire ecosystem is not fully mature. The cost will come down. But even for the early adopters, there's enough value that one can see. There'll be some failures, but for them, I think the key message is that please experiment, but if you fail early and then move on. Don't linger on. So with that, I personally think that IoT, especially in India, is here to stay. There's enough kind of focus which many of the ICT providers like Ericsson and others are giving, whether it's from a broadband perspective, whether it is from the other entire ecosystem apps. And I'm pretty sure that once this entire thing is also coming up, the regulations will also catch up. I know that there are enough committees in India which are working on IoT and various regulatory aspects to the entire thing. So to my mind, just to summarize, IoT is here to stay. IoT would grow. It is going beyond the enterprise. It's also getting into our homes and human beings as such. And the entire ecosystem would be kind of sensor enabled.
Right.
That's all I see.
Right.
It's just a question of time, nothing else.
When, yes.
When, yeah, he's the man.
No, actually, as I started, our vision is that of a network society. Anything that can benefit farmer connection will benefit. And India, being such a large country, 1.2 billion people, very large number of industries, we are headed towards a major urbanization. We are talking about 100 smart cities. In our view, we are going to be at the forefront of connecting every street light, every bus stand, making them intelligent, so that they are part of a very lively infrastructure of the city, and not something that is an eyesore or as people call it, visual pollution, so that the telecom, the ICT world can benefit from it. Now, whether that is automotive industry, I talked about, we are going to be at the forefront. How do you really put all the vehicles on the cloud, and how these vehicles, the drivers, the insurance companies, the whole ecosystem benefits from it, or whether it is connecting ships or connecting forests, the applications are immense. And our job is also to make sure that we are architecting networks like that. Then we are also building ICT systems on top of the networks to leverage these applications. That is our view, and that is what we would do in India as well.
Right. In the interest of time, we'll have to cut short this discussion, and we have had a chance to listen to both Ajay and Vijay, and hear their views on how IT and telecom are actually disrupting traditional ways of thinking and bringing out new products and services, and I guess it will continue to happen. Thank you all for watching this webcast, and you can also for those who have joined in late, you may get access to this webcast on economictimes.com. Thank you once again. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.